January 19th, 2021, out feeding some of my cattle. I've got a small group of feeder cattle, and I don't really finish that many out anymore. I used to do quite a few years ago, like 20 or 30 head a year, but primarily right now I'm using second cutting clover round bales, and they're gaining pretty good on that. And I gave up buying corn back in 2008. I didn't want to do the corn roller coaster with the ethanol industry boom took off. You know, the $8 corn just put me out of that altogether. I was buying corn initially for like $1.35 a bushel, like a year before the ethanol industry took off. And right now I got corn going up to like $5 a bushel again. So what I'm doing is I'm supplementing on got some blackstrap dry granulated molasses, and I take a 50-pound bag and interject it loosely into a round bale as I'm kind of tear apart the round bale, and then let them thumb through that. So I'm not mixing it or, you know, like liquefying it or anything like that. So it has, from what I've seen in studies with dairy cows, it has about an 85% the value of corn. However, they did find when you tried to feed it, 85% the energy values, I should say. But when they tried to feed it very high levels, the benefits actually decreased when compared to corn. So it seemed like somewhere between 10-20% of the total diet was optimal. So my daily intake and how fast they're going through a bag mixed with a particular round bale, I'm guessing my intake is roughly about 15 to 20% of the daily intake. So I'm going to just throw some of this in a bale. It just seems like an easy, inexpensive way to supplement. I know they're not gaining as much as if I had them on corn, but I really not that. I'm more of a cow-calf producer. I just got a small herd that's ancillary really to my hay business, so I'm not getting too technical about it, and I don't want to get back into buying and storing corn. It just seems to be a lot more labor than what I want to do right now. So, because I'm out on range, I don't have a barn environment. I sold all my gravity boxes years ago and corn storage equipment. All right, let me show you how I'm doing it. So, you know, here you go. If you're mixing this in with grain, they're probably, you know, they're saying 200 to 400 pounds per ton, or 50 pounds per ton of legume or grass silage, 25 pounds per ton of corn silage. So basically what I'm doing is mixing 50 pounds with about 500 pounds of dry legume hay. You know, let's just assume 88% dry matter. That's usually what your hay test out is. So I'm figuring 2.5 pounds of intake a day. If you got a 700 or 800 pound animal, they're probably eating 15 to 20 pounds of feed a day, probably altogether. So about 2 pounds a day of molasses. So here I got the molasses kind of broadcasted over the bale, broke the bale apart a little bit. You can see, so there's a lot of protein in this legume hay. I mean, look at, especially clover, you know, the first cutting or second cutting like this is, you know, it's probably tested out 15, 20% protein, probably 15-ish. And so plenty of protein, but we need the energy to help on a forage diet to assimilate a lot of that protein. So, you know, that's where feeding corn comes into, and getting that much higher growth rate than strictly on a forage fed animal. So this will disperse and fall down through there, you know, into the bale as they eat through it. But yeah, look at all that nice leaf in here. I know it's not a very scientific way, but just boost these animals a little bit when really, you know, I can get molasses pretty cheap right now. And since I started doing this, their consumption rate on that hay has probably increased by almost a third. So they're getting a lot more, you know, everything, a lot more TDN, you know, and which includes energy and protein in there for better weight gain. I mean, hay consumption's gone way up. So probably not having enough energy to break down all that fiber that probably was slowing the growth rate a bit. And hopefully this molasses, at least I think it's helping. So molasses still is not at better value than corn. It's, if you're not set up to, you know, feed corn, it's just an alternative to help with that roughage, because at almost $20 a bag of the dried granulated molasses, I think it's around, what did I say, about 38 cents a pound or 30 cents a pound. And the corn is a lot cheaper at $5 a bushel. It's around 9 cents a pound, but you can only get for that price if you buy it from a farmer, which right now nobody's really selling. They want to, they're contracting it all or selling what they have for the good money right now. And you know, but it's just a convenience thing that helps improve the digestibility of the forage. Now, what's the value of the forage? Increased forage intake and digestibility and assimilating that high protein in that clover hay that you otherwise probably would get, you know, pushed out the back end and not utilized as good. I don't know how you put dollar value on that. So really, it's almost costing me about $1 a day to feed those yearlings over there, just with the molasses. Because yeah, molasses is not the feed value of corn, even when you're just talking energy, which I actually thought molasses, without looking up the info, I thought molasses would have been higher in energy than corn, because it's made from cane sugar. But must be, you know, your table sugar, they must really concentrate that and get a much higher value. Or I don't know if the molasses is really a byproduct in the sugar processing business. Probably is. Really don't know much about it. But you know, hey, feed tubs are not a very good value either. You know, feed tubs you just use for convenience. Yeah, when we're talking feed tubs, you know, I mean, we just had a sale at our local Rural King store where you could get feed tubs for about $39.95, so $40. And everybody else is selling them, you know, the box stores, the non-box stores, the local feed stores, it's $100 a tub for 250-pound tub. So, you know, feed tubs you do for convenience, but feeding individual feed stuff components like hay, protein supplement, or energy supplement like corn is a far better value than the feed tubs. Just the feed tubs are easy to put out here on the pasture, and that's what I'm doing with these molasses. It's just a convenience thing. I'm gonna look around. I mean, I haven't really looked. I probably can get the dried molasses or molasses type product cheaper, you know, because you know, corn, I'm pretty confident I'm not overfeeding the molasses, but like if I were to mix corn into that round bale, there could be a big issue with overconsumption, the corn rotting and molding with the weather. You know, the molasses gets wet and sticky. I'm not worried about that. But yeah, anyways, what are your thoughts? Probably somebody out there with some good info. Talk to you later.